Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Carolyn Williams is our guest today. She's a registered dietitian that specializes in the topic of inflammation, one of my favorite topics. She's written a few books about it too. She's a proven expert in this field, and we pick her brain about it a lot, but we also pick her brain about what it takes to become a proven and trusted expert in any field. Carolyn shares that when she left dietitian school, she had zero interest in exploring the clinical dietitian path, so she didn't. She went into writing and thought leadership instead. All of this is to say that none of us is obligated to follow any particular career path that doesn't light us up, okay? Our show's sponsor is Primal Health Coach Institute. We are a health coaching school that provides aspiring and existing health and fitness professionals with the training, resources, and support to make a lucrative living changing lives. We've got thousands of graduates practicing unique coaching specialties and changing lives in countries all over the world. Visit primalhealthcoach.com to learn about all of our coaching and specialty certifications, and there's a lot of them, including the Primal Health Coach Certification Course, the Primal Fitness Coach Certification Course, and our Master Coach Certification Course, which satisfies the educational requirements to sit for the Health Coaching National Board Exam. We're in the process of launching several specialty courses, so existing coaches from any school can learn specialty certs in topics like strength training for women, the human intestinal microbiome, functional therapeutic diets, or health coaching in medical practices. And enrollment is open for our 12-week hands-on business coaching program. Our Launch Your Coaching Business course will nurture you to create and sell your signature health coaching program. We have a lot going on, so keep checking back to our website and sign up to our email list to be the first to find out when all of these outstanding new courses are open for enrollment. Visit primalhealthcoach.com and check it all out. As you're listening to today's show, make sure to screen grab your podcast player and tag us in your Instagram stories at Health Coach Radio. And as always, you can find the show notes for this episode and all previous episodes of our podcast at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. We hope you'll enjoy today's great conversation with our special guest, Carolyn Williams.
All right, Carolyn Williams, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
We're excited to have you. It's not, I love being able to talk to registered dietitians in terms of how you can be a resource to health coaches and how we're different and all of the things that you bring to the table and helping our health coaches understand they don't need to be RDs. There's people out there that are great at that. And how can we leverage RD knowledge within the frame of being a health coach and acting accordingly? So we're really excited to have you on here and grateful for your expertise. And we're going to really dig into kind of your specialty and kind of what you're passionate about here.
Okay.
But the first step in all of our conversations is to just have you tell us about you. Why are you here? Tell us a little, like your origin story, how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I majored in nutrition in undergrad. I was always in the kitchen growing up. Had no clue what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to be a teacher, then an accountant, and then somehow ended up majoring in nutrition and, got out. And granted, this was 20 or so years ago, but was just like, oh my goodness, all the jobs out here are horrible.
Wow.
I don't want to work in a hospital setting because I'd already interned in there. And like the setting I was in, no one really went to the dietitian for guidance and meals or anything. And then I was not wearing a hairnet like day in, day out. And, all the jobs, that's where most of the jobs were. And I was like, where are the wellness jobs? Where are the writing jobs? This is what I envisioned, and it's not here. But I ended up, I took a short stint away, thought I might want to go to medical school. No. And then ended up taking my first job in publishing, and I was an editor over a publishing house's quote unquote light cookbooks is what they called them back then, the healthy cookbooks. And so really, I really take for granted all that I learned just in the publishing world. And I went to taste testing every day and edited recipes and that kind of stuff. And so, it's publishing and cookbooks and stuff are kind of ingrained in me. But I went on after that to get my PhD in health promotion. And during that time, I also started teaching. So I'm full-time faculty at a community college, local community college. I teach culinary arts and nutrition and some health courses as well. But on the side, I started writing for media outlets, Cooking Light, Eating Well, Real Simple. People started calling me for interviews, that type of thing. And it just kind of grew to be this side hustle that, was almost a full-time job. And I loved it. What I loved, I'm such a nerd. I love getting all into the nitty-gritty research and, having a quiet space and having my highlighter and that study, a new study that I'm interested in. But I totally recognize that's not what most people want, and you really have to meet people where they're at. And so I've really kind of developed a niche where I think people trust me. They know that anything I tell them is going to be research-based, backed in science. They know I'm going to be honest too. I'm not going to, sugarcoat stuff or tell them I do stuff that I don't do. But I take what is in all that science and I boil it down into 2 or 3 things. And, it helps me to think, okay, what would my next door neighbor really want to know about this? You've read all this research. What does my next door neighbor want to know? What is my best friend down on the street? How could this help her at dinner tomorrow night or when she's at the grocery? So that's kind of the niche I've developed is I, take this heavy duty stuff, but I boil it down into what it means for people and how they can actually use it.
That's awesome. I love that. I think I'm grateful that you're doing that. Just as somebody else who's kind of in the health and nutrition space, because sometimes I feel, this is just my personal opinion, but there's a lot of flinging of studies that can happen. Sort of I found this study, here's a study, this study says this, and I don't find any of that actionable for the end user.
Right.
Yeah. The end user doesn't care if you're going to share a screen grab of a PubMed article to your Instagram stories. That's not actionable. So it sounds to me like what really lights you up is making the information actionable.
Yeah, and see it connect with people. I think that's the thing. We read so much. I mean, there's so much health stuff in the media and studies, and that a lot of it tends to just confuse people more and make people feel overwhelmed. So I really like, media articles, whatever it is, recipes that really connect and resonate with people. Oh yeah, this makes sense. I know how to use this, or this is doable.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting. We've had a few dietitians on, and I don't want to speak about the dietetics industry in any kind of blanket terms, but we've had a few on that shared sort of the same sort of disenchantment with the sort of clinical experience of being a dietitian. And so I just think it's kind of interesting and exciting that you were able to sort of find this little arena that really does light you up.
Yeah, I feel really lucky that I did. Because this isn't the norm for, most dietetics jobs.
But I bet you a lot of dietitians, maybe I shouldn't, I assume a lot of dietitians go into dietetics thinking, I really want to help people. I really want to connect with people and have them understand their bodies. And then it just never quite shakes out that way.
It never does. Instead you're going into a hospital room where a person just had a heart attack and you're trying to talk to them about a heart healthy, low sodium diet. That's not what they want to talk about right then. It's a lot more fun when you're on the preventive side or, and you can help somebody early on before you get to that point. But the jobs just aren't there, unfortunately. A lot of them aren't.
I'm hearing this from the nursing ranks too. My role at the school that Erin and I represent, enormous increase in the number of nurses that are interested in leaving nursing to get into the side of prevention has exploded in the last 2 years, I think for obvious reasons.
Wow.
That the prevention side is a lot more fun, first of all, a lot more rewarding. And I just think kind of once you're stuck in the hospital system, you feel like you're stuck on a hamster wheel, and it's just, it's too big of a ship to try to turn by yourself. So they're like, well, I got to get off the ship because I'm not doing any good here. And it's interesting to hear you say that in terms of dietetics and just something that you noticed early on. And a lot of what you're doing, I absolutely love. So our school, one of the things we're known for is the sciencey stuff, right?
I love it.
And then a lot of our coaches then go to marketing thinking they got to share the sciencey stuff.
Right.
Once my clients know all this stuff, boom, problem solved. And to your point,
and
no, it's
so disappointing. They aren't interested like you are. They never are.
No, but here's the thing. Like if I were a health coach listening before I had whatever my awakening was that might have led me to health coaching, I didn't either. I didn't until I had no choice.
Right.
When I was not finding success in other areas, it's like, why is this not working? And that's not even a huge segment of the population, right? That's still a pretty relatively small segment of the population. So coaches listening, the biggest service you can provide to your clients is helping them understand what this means when they're at the grocery store, is what I heard you say, right? What does it mean for dinner tonight? I absolutely love that. So I was looking at your website and I see a lot of recipes on there. You talk a lot about healing and the healing power of food and inflammation. So I want to dig into all of those things. But to begin, I would love to hear your trajectory about kind of how you built this particular business, because you're in private practice for yourself, right? You've got your own business.
Yeah, I don't even do private practice.
Okay.
I still teach some, but most of my work is in the media for clients and writing and recipes. I do nutrient analysis for companies or cookbooks, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it really is. It is kind of unique. I feel I couldn't have dreamed up a more perfect job if I tried. Yeah. So I feel very, very lucky to be here. And I think I've resonated with people because I'll tell health coaches. Another tip is and I found this out the hard way, like you have all this science and all this knowledge, and you also want to give it all to them so they can just run with it. They can't handle it all. You have to start small, even though that small little thing is not going to be a major game changer. You've just got to start small. And like with inflammation, I will say, if you can do nothing else, here's what I want you to do this week: eat 2 to 3 cups of berries. Just do that, and sometimes you have to start with people there. Just little things. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, well, here's a question for you. So this is a great kind of segue and example. Is if the only thing you do this week is eat 2 to 3 cups of berries, are you sharing why those cups of berries with them? Yes. And kind of where does this role come in? And let's kind of tie in this, how breaking these simple choices, simple habits, what that's going to do. How does that sort of equate to your work and working with clients?
Yeah, well, a lot of this goes back to inflammation, which has become really my focus area, accidentally kind of. If you told me 5 or 6 years ago that I knew I'd probably write another few cookbooks, but if you told me I'd write a cookbook on inflammation, I would have said, no, you're crazy. And I might have even gone a step farther and said, that'll never sell. So, it really kind of taking inflammation as an example. What I've realized with it is we are so focused, I think, from diet culture on removing things. Yeah. And that is the first question I always get from people is, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to cut out? What do I need to get rid of? What do I need to stop eating to lower inflammation? And it always takes them by surprise usually, because I steer them back to first, let's focus on what you need to add, because there's so much power in certain foods from an anti-inflammatory perspective and just all health aspects. And I guarantee you they're not getting near enough, if any, of those foods. And so I really like to steer them back to, okay, let's talk about what we're going to add. And there are 3 groups of foods that I tell people, here's where we're starting, because when I was going through the research, these are the 3 groups that just kept rising to the top in the research. It got to be obnoxious. I was like, give me something else, but those 3 are the leafy greens, berries, and cruciferous vegetables. And so that's usually where I start with people, as I say, okay, there, and it's the compounds in them, the phytochemicals, it's the nutrients. They are they're very powerful, and we're not getting near enough of those in our diet. So that's usually my starting place for people. And what you find then is if you can just get them, and I recommend a cup of leafy greens a day. And I tell them, this doesn't have to be a salad. It doesn't have to be a salad. That's typically what we think. It can, my favorite one to buy each week is baby spinach, because I can use it in salads and in grain bowls, but I can also stir it into spaghetti sauce. I can stir it into soup, and it wilts really quickly. So just get a leafy green in, darker is usually more nutrient dense, but just get a leafy green in, a cup a day. 2 to 3 cups of berries a week, which really isn't that hard. It can be fresh or frozen. In fact, sometimes frozen are more nutrient dense because they're frozen immediately after being picked. And then cruciferous vegetables, get in about 5 servings of those a week. And I tell people, if it's a vegetable that really stinks when it's cooking, it's usually a cruciferous vegetable, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your Brussels sprouts, your kale. But it's those sulfur compounds that stink that are also really powerful. And so I encourage people to start there. And what you find is if you can get them in the habit of doing those 3 things, making those staples within their week, then that automatically cleans up their diet some. Mm-hmm. And then you can start focusing on, okay, let's look at what we might want to minimize. Let's look at what we might want to substitute or cut back on. So I found it's much more doable. People gain confidence because usually those are fairly doable things that they can do each week. And then they're ready to take bigger steps in their diet and just health choices.
That's great. That's really interesting. Do you find that the berries, I think, would be an easy sell, but I feel like dark leafy greens and cruciferous veggies you'd be kind of fighting people on that. How do you handle that? Because when we think about adding things to the diet, which I think is an awesome approach, let's talk about what we can add rather than focusing on what we take away. But those are hard for people to add because they don't like them.
Yeah. I think it's just experimenting with them. You can throw a handful of leafy greens in a smoothie in the morning. And I have made one that I was determined to find one, a smoothie that my kids would drink that had some greens in it, but they could not know it had greens in. So it is possible to make one where you do not taste them, you do not see them, you do not know. Unless that person walks in the kitchen while you're making it, they don't know. So throw it in a smoothie. I think it's just little things. And, it doesn't have to be like talking about leafy greens. I said a cup a day. It doesn't have to be a cup at one sitting. Right. Throw some lettuce, some greens on your sandwich. Then later, you're making like a saucy skillet dish, throw some baby spinach in there at the end. Just want it to amount to about a cup each day, just kind of finding little spots. And it's not all or nothing. If you only get half a cup that day, that's better than nothing. So maybe taking that approach. And I think with the cruciferous vegetables, the game changer for a lot of people is roasting them. It's a whole, oh my goodness. And I have actually, my kids who don't claim to be veggie lovers, I have found though, like I will roast broccoli or I will roast green beans, which green beans aren't a cruciferous vegetable, but I will do it at the very start of when I'm making dinner. So, and then pull them out while I'm finishing dinner. And as people are walking through the kitchen, they'll just grab them, the crispy broccoli, green beans. And it's not unusual for almost all of them to be gone by the time we sit at the table, but that's fine with me, but roasting is a game changer.
I can't tell you how many times I've shared that tip with my clients. Like a roasted vegetable is a treat. But actually, you reminded me of one of the little gigs that I did as I was moving out of my corporate career and into my health coaching career. I took on a couple little like gigs just and one of them was I went to work for a smoothie company, a smoothie bar, like the smoothie bar company was a chain, and they were looking to revamp their menu. And I was really just troubled by this is just my own personal crusade, but all these smoothies were just like sugar bombs. It was like fruit on fruit on fruit on fruit. And I was like, I'm going to make one that's vegetable, or the vegetables outweigh the fruit. It was just a personal crusade. So I did a smoothie that was full of leafy greens, and I found that the solution was mango.
That'll take over everything.
It does. A little bit of mango, you blend it. It even changes the color to a nice, it's greenish, but it totally wipes out that greens taste. You can put a ton of greens in a smoothie and like a half a cup of frozen mango. Nobody can tell.
That's a great tip. I love that. I threw berries in because I was trying to hide the green color from my kids. So yeah, but mango's good.
Trying to hide the color. That's so awesome. My theory is if you put just the right amount of salt and then enough garlic, everything tastes fine, and I found too with a lot of clients that say they don't like vegetables, it's because growing up, they ate a lot of canned vegetables or just they just were not well done at all. And, and interesting, this approach in terms of lowering inflammation, I think Dr. Terry Wells would be all over that. If you ever, I don't know if you're familiar with her protocol in terms of treating MS, but it's mountains of cruciferous vegetables and leafy greens.
Yeah. I mean, essentially her protocol is an anti-inflammatory protocol.
Yeah. So I would love some tips here because when we were before we jumped on here and I was looking through some potential questions and things to talk about, especially with your book coming up and what have you. And one of the questions in there was how to know if you're suffering from high levels of inflammation and what to do about it. So do you have some advice for coaches and helping to explain this to a client? What is inflammation? How do you know if this is a problem for you? Where does it come from? That kind of stuff. I mean, do you have some tips or I guess some language that coaches can use that make that information accessible and understandable to their client?
Definitely. Yeah. Again, you have to connect with people. So you've got to get, on their level and find what connects with them. But first, if you're explaining inflammation to a client, here's kind of how I explain it. To other people is inflammation in itself is not bad. Inflammation is a reaction of our immune system. It is there to keep us healthy, to help us heal our bodies. And, that's how it was designed. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the key with it though, is you have a little inflammation, it goes away, kind of like a finger cut. Your finger gets red, it maybe swells a little bit, it hurts. That's inflammation. And that's good inflammation. It shows that the white blood cells and compounds are rushing in to heal it. And then in 2 days, usually that inflammation is gone. Same with like a fever. Kids get like 24-hour fevers all the time. That fever is inflammation. It's fighting off the bad stuff. And then that fever goes away, which is what you want to do. Same with like a sprained ankle. So that's good inflammation. That's what you hear referred to as acute. And that's how inflammation was designed to work in our bodies and protect us and heal the body. The type of inflammation that I'm talking about and that you hear so much in the media refers to low-grade chronic inflammation. And this is inflammation. It's still a reaction of the immune system, but it's more subtle. It's low grade and it's triggered by lifestyle irritants. Mm-hmm. And so this really wasn't an issue, years ago, because this is more a side effect of our foods, our sedentary lifestyle, our stress. So chronic inflammation is really essentially kind of a new concept, or new within the past 100 years. But that is what the key with chronic inflammation is, that it doesn't go away. And that's the problem. It sticks around until you do something to put it out. And I tell people I'm very visual. And so when I was going through all the research, I was like, I got to figure out a way to like see this in my head. And I found some book or something that compared inflammation to like a fire. And so you have a little inflammation, maybe you have a little from your diet or, just maybe you've been really stressed. And so you have a little inflammation. Think of that as like a little, just small contained fire in your body. And, if you start right then to lower your stress or make a few diet changes, you can put that inflammation out. But if you don't, that fire stays there. And when your body, when you have a little inflammation, it's kind of like a person, like if you've had a really like bad morning, and you think you're over it, but then something else happens again and you're just quick to pop off, you're just a little more reactive. That's how your body is once it has a little inflammation. So it's hypersensitive, it's hyperreactive. So it's more likely to trigger inflammation from other lifestyle irritants. So it can start another fire. And before you know it, you could have little fires of inflammation all over your body. And, that can slowly lead to systemic inflammation. Someone doesn't wake up with type 2 diabetes one day.
Right.
It starts way back with these little fires. Now, the problem is because inflammation, particularly in the early stages, it's so subtle. And the initial signs are really, really subtle. And they're totally things we would blow off. They're totally things we'd never go to the doctor for. Maybe you're having more bloating than usual. And, you notice it a couple of times a week, or maybe your body's reacting to a food that you eat and it didn't used to. But it's annoying, but you keep going on with your day. Or you've got this weight that, 5 to 10 pounds that you just can't get off. And in the past, when you really focused on diet and maybe activity, you could lose that 5 to 10 pounds. It just won't budge. You have new skin irritations. I do a long list. It's subtle things though. But, it's things that, if you take the time to think, aren't quite right for you. And so that's your really early signs of inflammation. But ones that are easier to identify once you have a little more inflammation are like high cholesterol levels, high LDL, high triglycerides, high blood pressure, or if someone has high blood pressure or high cholesterol, but it's controlled, it's in normal range, but they're on medication. The medication is keeping you there. There's still inflammation there. High fasting blood glucose. Those are all early signs, that there's inflammation there. And those are early stages where you can put that inflammation out. I like to think of inflammation on a continuum, and we really just want to keep it at the lower end of that continuum. And it's going to come up every now and then. You go on vacation and, you eat and drink way too much, and, you come back and you're a little bloated. Maybe you've got some headaches, that kind of thing. You do get back on your healthy eating habits and that inflammation comes down. So it's keeping it at that it's keeping it at that lower end of the continuum before it progresses. But the other important thing to know is that inflammation is at the root of every single condition. And I'm not just talking about your major ones, like Alzheimer's and type 2 diabetes and heart disease and those type of things. I'm talking about even your subtle ones. Inflammation can be playing a role in like thyroid issues, in hormone imbalances. It's the driver of everything. It's kind of like a little motor that's running in the background of your body. And, if you've already got something going on, it's going to exacerbate that issue or push it along. It's a primary driver in pretty much every condition in your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really awesome explanation. And I think a few things that really jumped out. First of all, is the just inherently insidious nature of it. So people wouldn't notice one day, oh, I'm chronically inflamed. It literally just creeps up over time. And the symptoms become normalized. And I think back to my own origin story. I had bad knees. I just got a bad knee. I had one bad knee. It aches all the time. I can't walk downstairs until suddenly it was fine because I cleaned up the inflammation in my life and in my diet. When I removed the inflammatory sort of triggers, my knee was spontaneously perfectly fine, but I'd lived with a bad knee for a decade. And I've even had clients that say that, I have a little anti-inflammatory sort of foundation to my metabolic program that I do. And people will say, oh, I lost 10 pounds. And suddenly I'm not on my pain meds for my sore shoulder anymore. And it's
like shocker. Yeah. No, I love what you said, though, normalize. They are things that are very easy to normalize and blow off, and not necessarily, maybe after 3 months, you think I should make a doctor's appointment, but
because it feels like aging. It's like, oh,
right.
I guess I'm just getting older. But that's because the inflammation, those symptoms mount over time. And so it's mounting over time. You're getting older. We just have decided that, like, symptomatically speaking, not in terms of the diagnosed disease states you mentioned, but in terms of just walking around with inflammatory symptoms, they become so normalized.
Yes.
And the other thing that I love that you mentioned that I wanted to pull back, and this kind of is the same idea, but this idea, nobody knows how good they will feel. Like that's the tough sell, because they have normalized this. This is just how I feel now. But what I kind of really float with my clients is, well, we can just try and experiment. Like we can just try and experiment and see if you can feel a little better. But there is a sense, and you did touch on this, it's nebulous. I don't feel like I used to. Something doesn't feel like it's super, super hard for people even to articulate. And to me, that whenever I hear clients say that to me, like, I don't know, I don't feel like myself. I'm like, you're inflamed. That's all that.
Yes. I mean, and really, once you realize it, like, that's really the best indicator. Like you're not your norm. It's little, it's minor, but you're not quite your norm. And that's really the earliest sign when you can detect it and do something about it.
The biggest thing I see with most of my clients is the fatigue, how tired they are all the time. And they just think, well, I didn't get enough sleep. They're like, this is what I hear. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm tired all the time. And I keep trying to tell them, this is your body trying to heal itself. And the more you're constantly running at Mach 5, the less it can heal itself. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, at some point, you've got, I kind of view stress, inflammation is also on that stress barometer. And the more we add to it, at some point it's going to blow, right? And so the only way to make it better is to let some sort of inflammation or stress fall out the spigot on the bottom, Right. You've got to find a way to kind of manage for that. But, and so typically speaking with so many of my clients, their answer, well, I'm tired all the time, fatigued. So they drink caffeine.
Yeah.
Which causes other forms of inflammation and problems with the stress response and cortisol. And the next thing you know, they're drinking caffeine. So now they're jittery, but they don't really have energy. They're just sort of jittery, but they can make it through the end of the day, and they get home for dinner, dog tired. They eat a meal. They're like, I can't wait to go to bed. 9 o'clock rolls around. I'm wide awake. I've got my second wind. I can't fall asleep.
Yeah. Or they go home and have a glass of wine to kind of come down from the caffeine.
Yes. Again, more inflammation. That's the other thing. Oh, well, a glass of wine is good for me, right? Research shows that people that drink a glass of wine a day, or whatever. And I'm like, don't let that fool you. Okay. Because ethanol is toxic to the body. So under normal conditions, in a normal response, it could be what we call a hormetic stress, right? But if you're doing this habitually all the time, and what if I had a client that drank an entire bottle of wine by herself, like almost every night. This was normalized. And what I hear from a lot of my family too is, here's a term I use. Well, it's normal for as we age. I'm like, no, it's common. It's common as we age, but that doesn't mean it's normal. We have taken something that's becoming very common for a reason and have completely disregarded the issue. Like there's something causing this, something is making this common today. And we've just decided it's normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So and having that conversation and unwinding that is really hard. And so what I love about something you were talking about earlier, this like meeting clients where they're at and talking about what they can eat, right? Giving them the power to make different decisions to influence that and focusing on what they can eat. Cause I'll tell you, if if they've got a cup of leafy greens, they've got some berries, they got some cruciferous vegetables on those cruciferous vegetables will fill you up far more than rice or pasta or anything else. Well, all that fiber, right? So the next thing you know, you've kind of crowded out all the other stuff.
Exactly. It kind of naturally cleans up the diet, but it doesn't feel like deprivation or giving up stuff. Yeah.
Right. No, I love that. Yeah. So, and it sounds to me like you kind of lead with recipes, right? Giving people something to, so if you speak to that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, and I think particularly with my newest cookbook, I'm just in a stage of life where I really don't want to cook dinner. And it was kind of freeing once I admitted it. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say, thank you for like saying that, because I think there's this feeling like we should be so excited to get in our kitchen and cook dinner for our families. And, when it's not a weeknight, school night on the weekends, yes, I love to do, get in the kitchen. But, I've got a 12 and 15-year-old, working all day, balancing their social lives and academics, and cooking dinner a lot of days just feels like another thing on my to-do list.
Yeah.
So, I thought, if I'm feeling like this and I know what to eat and I know cooking tricks and that kind of thing, I can't imagine how other people are feeling. So really, my recipes stem from, I don't want to cook dinner, but I can't afford takeout for my health or financially. And I really want my family to have good things. So, let's make it quick. Let's make it simple. But at heart, I'm a foodie. I mean, I love food. I want to be excited about my leftovers for lunch the next day. So that dish has got to be good. So really, all the recipes in my book, it's only about 15 minutes of hands-on work. And they were all tested in my house, and if it didn't meet the caliber, all of them met my standards for nutrition and things, but if it didn't make the taste or the family table, grade, then we moved on to another recipe. It didn't make the book. So it had to be worthy of me getting in the kitchen for 15 to 20 minutes on a weeknight.
Yes. I think this is crucial. People, I find that people that don't have the time or energy and are in their heads, they're inflating how much time and energy it's going to take to make a meal. I hear that a lot from clients. I don't have time. Listen, it takes 4 minutes to scramble eggs in the morning for breakfast. It's really not that much time. But I also think, and I'd like to ask your opinion on this as a cookbook author. I think a lot of it is cooking skills. It's not like I don't know recipes. It's just, I don't really know how long to roast a chicken for. I don't really know how to roast broccoli. How do you do that? Like, I think that people just have, and then I think my folks get down on themselves because they don't feel like they're good in the kitchen. Yeah. So I think there's something about that, sort of their confidence. And so if it's a quick, easy meal that tastes good, that's a major confidence boost.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it really, if you don't feel like you have a lot of kitchen skills, I promise it doesn't take a lot of talent for simple recipes. And like roasted broccoli, if you have a good recipe to follow, you can't mess it up. You're going to learn, I like it an extra minute or two because, they get a little crispy on the edges. You're going to figure out those kind of things. But I promise, like roasting vegetables is actually probably a really good place to start because it's really hard to mess that up. But yeah, it feels like go ahead.
One thing you just said that I try to tell my clients too is like, anybody who told you that cooking was some kind of complex art,
right,
was lying to you. It's very easy. You can YouTube. I YouTubed how to roast a chicken because I was buying rotisserie chickens from the grocery store and I was like, you know what? I probably can do this.
Yeah.
I YouTubed it. It's not that hard, right? We can learn anything. But I feel like, and I had this same exact experience. I was always told that I wasn't good in the kitchen or wasn't inclined in the kitchen. But then I believed it. And then I just stopped trying. But it can be learned.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think meal prep is another aspect. People feel like they've got to spend this all Sunday afternoon in the kitchen, meal prepping, that kind of thing. And I'm not big on meal prepping. I mean, you see all those containers that people post on social media with, they're beautiful, but I don't want the same meal over and over again all week.
Agree.
And I don't want to spend my Sunday afternoon in the kitchen. But I tell people I don't do meal prep, but I try to have key components on hand. And so, and I provide that in this new cookbook. So I even give a grocery list. Let's say you haven't figured out your recipes for the week, but you need to go on and go to the grocery and put stuff in your house. So I give kind of a breakdown. Okay, we're going to get 1 or 2 leafy greens. We're going to get some vegetables to roast. We're going to get, 2 to 3 proteins. So you can stock your kitchen and have what you need to then throw your stuff together. I really like to cook a protein on Sunday when I have time. Maybe we're having grilled chicken for dinner and I'll cook a bunch extra for the week, because then when I am in a pinch, I have that grilled chicken that I can, toss with, make like a, tacos with, or, you throw in a salad, throw it in a grain bowl. I've got it right there. I've got my greens. I've got canned beans in the cabinet, So I do think you do not have to meal prep. And I think that's intimidating to a lot of people. But I have found, just buying some key components can be really key in having those available in your house.
And I'm a huge advocate of cooking once to eat twice or 3 times.
Yeah.
We do that all the time. I'm one of the few families that I know that actually eats our leftovers, because I do it that way on purpose, so you have things that are going to taste good the next day. Sometimes they taste better.
They do.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they taste better after they've been in the fridge for a day and then you reheat it. So, cooking once to eat twice. So you don't have to plan 5 dinners, plan 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And then leftovers. My life's like
I don't
yours.
cook every night. Yeah. I cook maybe 2 to 3 nights a week. Friday nights, I don't cook at all. That we go out on Fridays or we order in or something. But I only cook 2 to 3 nights a week because I'm making extra, or, I'm making extra components like the chicken I mentioned. Maybe I make extra that chicken so I can use it somehow in a different dish, throw together a grain bowl the next day.
Yeah, I like your approach to meal prep. I talk about this with my clients too, and I just completely resonate with this whole, I don't want to spend my Sunday cooking, and I don't really want to eat soggy food at a Tupperware for 7 days. But to me, prep is, I know what foods support me. So prep happens up here partially. It also happens in the grocery store. I purchased it. I own it. And it's thawed. I actually get I will text my clients, it's Wednesday. Have you thawed food? It's Sunday. Have you thawed food? Because if it's not ready in the fridge to cook, well, let's order and let's get some.
Yeah.
It's so funny, but so true.
Definitely.
But I think prep, I think the biggest part of prep that's overlooked is fully understanding what food supports you and how to put them together.
Yeah.
To me, that's meal prep.
Yeah. And what foods you're going to be eating. It doesn't have to be recipes, but what foods. Yeah. I think we're going to recoin the term meal prep.
I like it. And that's a great segue, Erin, in terms of like foods that support you. Because one of the other things on your list that you've felt comfortable talking about was knowing if you've got food intolerances. This all goes part and parcel with inflammation. So, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So do you mind speaking a little bit to food intolerances and how to be like, gee, maybe this is part of the problem? What should people be looking for?
So food intolerances, food sensitivities are usually a sign that you have inflammation. They're acting as an irritant to the body. So they're going to spur some more inflammation or exacerbate what you've got. But at their root, they're a sign that you have inflammation because your body's irritated. It's hypersensitive. It's reacting to things it never reacted to before. Food intolerances or sensitivities, there's a lot of tests out there. And I haven't reviewed some of the latest research on some. The problem with food sensitivities and intolerances is they're not like food allergies where you can have a clear-cut test. Yes or no, you're allergic. or not. That's the problem. There's no exact diagnostic tool. And, there's a lot of kits on the market. They were real popular 2 to 3 years ago. And I haven't seen that they have the most reliable results. What really it can be the most reliable is getting someone to follow an elimination diet, but that's for extreme cases because it's hard to do. Right. So I coach people, and I included kind of a quick method to doing an elimination diet to figure out like food sensitivities. And, what you want to do is take a week where you really try to clean up your diet. You get rid of gluten and dairy and, unnecessary chemicals and compounds and dyes and that kind of stuff. So you really eat clean for about a week. And then you reintroduce the food that you think is triggering your inflammation. Maybe that's dairy. Or maybe, there's sometimes people are sensitive to milk, but not yogurt, So you reintroduce one for a few days and you see how you feel. And you will see a direct response by your body. Usually, if you've cleaned up your diet good for a week, you will usually see, you can tell, you can tell what foods are triggering your inflammation, and then you can know. And that's usually the best way to identify what you really need to cut out.
Yes. I love that you use a week as the elimination period, because I staunchly believe that it's sufficient time to clear the decks. Because my nutrition schooling, it was, the elimination diet had to be an 8-week elimination. And then you had to, then the reintroduction does have to be pretty deliberate. That's true. I think that's true. The reintroduction has to be pretty intentional, deliberate, but I don't think we have to get people eliminating for 2 months of their lives. That's miserable.
Well, they're not going to do it. And I just know from personal experience, if I eat clean for a week, I can see little reactions to foods when I add those not so, other things back in. And the other thing is doing this is pretty doable for people, which that's key. But also it's so great. Not that I want somebody to have a food sensitivity or intolerance. It's so great when people make the connection and they're like, oh my gosh, my joints had stopped hurting. And then I, added whatever food it is back and I felt it again. And that's what motivates people to start digging deeper into their diet. They see the connection. And that's really, for all of us, that's what makes a difference.
It's hugely motivating. I can't think of one time where I asked a client to do this basic elimination. They reintroduced, they found the thing that triggered the symptom and they were mad about it. I can't think of one time where they were like, oh, bummer. Now, now I can't have cream in my coffee. They were like, the cream in my coffee was doing this the whole time. Wow. Yeah, I'll drink my coffee black. No problem. Like, I can't think of one time people weren't excited to be empowered and uncovering them.
It's like a puzzle and all the pieces click into place. And you're like, oh my gosh, because it's hard to see a direct reaction from your daily diet to your health. We see it and get frustrated with it when it comes to weight. But when this is a much clearer one, and it's easy. It's nice when the puzzle pieces fit and it just makes sense. And that's what motivates you. And, it's a lot easier to avoid a food when you know that it's going to make my joints hurt. I know from experience,
Oh, it's very easy for me to go to the movie theater and not eat popcorn because I know exactly I'm going to have 3 days of misery.
Yeah.
Like, that's just information. And so what's powerful about this from, you kind of dropped this whole, the diet culture thing. What I think is powerful about this is that it's just information. You just learn something about yourself. It's not that movie theater popcorn is bad. It's just, it's not great for you. You can choose to opt in or out of it if you want, but now you know what will happen. You're aware of consequences, and there's autonomy, packaged up perfect.
Right. Like, I know if I eat full fat ice cream at night, which is not a lot. But if I do splurge, take my kids out and eat full fat ice cream, I know I'm going to wake up with a stuffy nose and a little bit of a sore throat. It causes congestion. And, knowing that, it's a lot easier to be like, I don't think I really want that,
Ice cream is always a hard no. Ice cream feels inflammatory as I'm eating it.
I know. And that's always been my biggest weakness, but so I just figured out how to make like coconut milk ice cream at home, but I don't buy most of the pre-made brands have all that other garbage in it.
Yeah.
So, I've started making coconut milk popsicles with my girls. We have a can of coconut cream. We blend in some frozen fruit. We pour it into a silicone popsicle mold, stick some sticks into it, and voila, popsicles. And they're low in sugar. They've got healthy fats and they love them and they help me make it. And they're super creamy and yummy and there's no dairy in there. And it feels like dessert to them.
Yeah.
That's been our thing. Yeah. But so and interestingly, in talking about gluten, I've seen this happen where people are like, well, I took out gluten and it didn't do anything. And then I realized what they did is they just took whatever gluten containing food they were eating and they just replaced it with a gluten-free version full of a bunch of other processed garbage,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, we lost an opportunity there. Okay. So here's what, we really should consider. So, I mean, but I see that kind of stuff happen all the time. So are you in favor? It sounds to me like you are of just cleaning everything up, get the typical triggers out and just stick with basically, I don't know, like meat, veg, some fruit,
Well, I think the more you can go whole, minimally processed, the better. If you are having inflammation and you are having new food sensitivities, you don't know what they are. Yes. My initial approach is let's cut out gluten. Let's cut out dairy. Let's cut out, your highly processed foods. Let's focus on those whole foods. Now, once you get that inflammation calmed down, a lot of people do find like they can add some dairy back and they're fine. They can add a little gluten back sometimes and they're fine. Although a lot of people find when they cut out gluten for a while, when they do add it back, and this happens to me, like when I do eat something with gluten, I feel very bloated. I feel like I am pregnant again for a little while. So, it's not about, I think the real strict clean eating is really when you're trying to identify those food sensitivities.
Yeah.
But really, on a weekly basis, focus on whole foods that still resemble what they looked like when they were growing, and minimally processed. Now, we are so lucky in this, in the past few years, we have had some great brands come out that really use higher quality ingredients than we've had in the past. So I'm a big proponent of finding those brands and using those processed foods as shortcuts. And I tell people my trick, it used to be, look at the ingredient list. You don't want more than 5 ingredients. Well, it really matters what those 5 ingredients are. So you can't really go by that. So if I'm buying like a jarred marinara, that's one that that's a shortcut I would buy. It's processed, but that's one I would buy. There's some really good quality salad dressings out there. Mm-hmm. I have several in my refrigerator because it's not realistic for me to think I'm going to make a homemade salad dressing when I'm in a pinch for dinner. So with either of those products, what I do is I look at the ingredient list and I think, okay, if I was making this product from scratch at home, what would the ingredients be? And I want to see that the ingredients, what would be in my pretend recipe, I want to see that those are the same in the ingredient list on that product.
Yeah.
That they are things I have in my pantry that make sense to be in a tomato sauce, organic tomatoes, extra virgin olive oil, garlic, spices, maybe it has a touch of sugar at the very, very end, but that's normal because a lot of your home, you have to balance the acidicness. Same for a salad dressing, so it's not, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with like clean eating, that term, because it feels like everything has to be from scratch. Yeah. And that's not doable for me. That's not doable for most people. And luckily we have some products out there that, I think are very healthy shortcuts. Yes, it'd be better if you made it by home, but it's not that much, and it's more, people, it's more, people get hung up on, I need to make my own salad dressing and then they never do it or they don't have time. And so then they never eat the salad. The most important thing is that you eat the salad, eat the vegetables.
Yeah. I mean, we've been very, very lucky, especially in the last, 5 years, Erin, the sheer number of brands that have come out that are just so much better. My rule of thumb was the same as you. Look at the back of the ingredients. If you're thinking, oh, I could make that in my kitchen if I had the time. Awesome. The term I use, I love the term whole foods, but sometimes I still get a blank look. It's weird. And so I'm like, all right, one ingredient foods. It's one ingredient. Great. Broccoli is one ingredient. Ground beef has one ingredient. Let's build a meal of one ingredient foods. Yeah. So your meal has multiple ingredients, but it's relatively minimally processed. And that's a great way to kind of work with it. Because the problem is when you're trying to just remove gluten, but you're eating a bunch of foods that have a bunch of different ingredients. First of all, a lot of people don't understand the hidden terms. Yeah. Where gluten is found. And there could be other things, other additives and preservatives that they're reacting to or cross-reacting to. Yeah. So if you for a week can stick with building meals out of one ingredient foods or foods that if you looked at the back, you know exactly what's in it, you could make it in your kitchen, then you're probably fine.
Well, and I think it's important to maybe you can combine one ingredient foods. You can take your plain yogurt and add berries, and add slivered almonds. So it's not just about eating a single food. You can combine them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the processed food thing for a sec, because yes, it is a golden era for healthy processed foods if you live in the United States.
Oh, yes.
Don't. That's true.
Don't. Because in Canada, we don't have any of those brands. But so my client, here's an example that I'll use is my clients will say, what about sausage? Because sausage is such a quick and easy food to throw in the pan for breakfast, but it's a processed food and it's full of all kinds of fillers. And I was like, you know what? Just go to the sausage section and pick up the package. And yes, lots of them have wheat crumbs or corn starch or soy, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them are pork, salt, spices. There's going to be some kind of a nitrate in there because it's a cured meat. But they're even just generic brands of things. Like you mentioned marinara. You don't have to get the Primal Kitchen marinara. There are other marinara brands on the shelf that are also clean. You just have to do a small amount of due diligence. Yeah. That's again, understanding what ingredient am I looking for to avoid. And I find it incredibly easy to find these convenience processed foods. And I'm such a staunch advocate for half measures. Sure, if you can concoct a really beautiful whole foods meal, go for it. Awesome. But if it's I'm going to throw some ground beef in with this jar of marinara and call it good, great. That's good enough. Just do your best.
Yeah, exactly. And we tend to feel like it's all or nothing. It has to be perfect. And, a lot of times I think that's what keeps people from eating healthy,
So there's a lot of health coaches out there that are looking for resources to refer their clients to make life easier. So tell us a little bit about your book that you wrote. It's coming out.
Yeah.
By the time this goes live, it'll be out.
I've got a copy right here.
Oh, look at it. Meals that heal. What does it say? One pot?
One pot. Yeah. So my first book in 2019 was Meals That Heal. And it was just over 100 quick and easy, everyday anti-inflammatory recipes. And then this tries to make it even simpler because it's focusing on sheet pans, one skillet dinners, just making it even more simple in there. So, and what people are always surprised, and I think it's a pleasant surprise, the feedback I've gotten is good, is the first 3 to 4 chapters of both cookbooks really break down inflammation and just little things you can do. Like in this, in Meals That Heal One Pot, I throw in what I call little jump starts throughout the book. And that's 10 easy, simple things you can do, to get more leafy greens in, to get more probiotic rich food in, just because people need those easy little things to do. But because of that intro, it's really a great reference, a great kind of intro to people if you're really trying to get them to understand inflammation or just how diet affects their whole body and whole health a little more.
Cool.
I love it. This whole conversation has been right in the wheelhouse of health coaches. So thank you for that, because I know a lot of health coaches really struggle with staying in scope and talking about food and everything we've talked about today was completely in scope and right in the wheelhouse. And I'm hoping that health coaches listening are walking away from this episode like, I can do that.
I can do that too. I've loved this discussion, and I love that, it's health coaches that I'm speaking to, because it's perfect for them to help carry this message to people.
Wonderful. Great stuff. Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Where can people find you before we let you go?
So I'm most active on Instagram, and my handle is realfood_real_life_RD. You could probably search my name too, and it'll pop up, Carolyn Williams. Both of my books are on sale at all major retailers. Amazon, you can get it, should be able to get it at all your big box stores, both in person or online. And then my website is carolynwilliamsrd.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Hi, great. Thank y'all.
Bye.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.